Hi, I'm Abby. I'm part of the risk team, and welcome to this risk tool summary demo. Today we're going to be looking at the Nature Conservancy's Resilient Land Mapping tool. It's a tool that's super nuanced, but also easy to use and free for anybody to use. Hopefully you've already read the tool summary that we sent out in our email, but in this demo we're going to be digging into the mapping tool and learning about the 3 different kinds of maps that you can use in this, interpreting them, and also drawing a polygon or uploading a shapefile to get some summary statistics for it. So let's get started. So this is the Resilient Land Mapping tool. The link is in the description, and it's free and open for anybody to use. So here you can see, by zooming out a little bit, that it encompasses the entire US, but we're just going to be focusing on this Northeast region because that's where risk is based. So before we start playing around, let's see what this map is telling us. This sidebar, let me move myself, is going to be showing you pretty much anything about the current map layer that you have active. So below here, you can see the legend. And clicking on any one of these map layers is going to tell you some information about that layer. So that's just for you exploring it, but we're also going to talk about a bunch of these layers in this video. So resilience in terms of this map is based on geology. It's based on the bedrock geology, the soils, the elevation, these 3 layers really. And the connection between geology and resilience might not be intuitive immediately, but basically the logic is that having a diversity of geology, elevation, and landforms at a site can create a diversity of microclimates. And it's these diversity of microclimates that might make the area a natural stronghold for, in the face of climate change, that this area is a naturally safe harbor for a diversity of species just because of the way the land is. So they put all these layers together to get the landscape diversity map. You can zoom in and find out a little more. Again, you can scroll down to find out more about it. And the other big component here to make this resilient sites map is connectedness. Connectedness, which you can see here, means that if areas are more connected, they're more likely to allow species to move and shift their ranges appropriately in response to climate change. On the other hand, if the land cover prevents this, saying by having a large urban area, it may mean that that connectedness is lowered and the surrounding sites have a lower resilience. So it puts out both of these layers together. It's important to note that in any of these layers, you can just click on any point and get information about that layer at that particular point. And it highlights, what the main message of that point is for any of these layers. So it's easy to use. Both the landscape diversity and the connectedness make this resilient map, which is the default map that you see when you log onto the site. And the resilience map ranks the scores of any of these areas by comparing each geophysical setting to the scores of other geophysical settings, as it says here. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is flow. Flow, which you can see in either of these maps, we're going to focus on this one, is important in the context of climate change. You might already be familiar with the idea that climate change is going to trigger range shifts of species. But in today's landscape, you can have a bunch of things that can block those shifts. As the Nature Conservancy defines in its methods, flow in an ecological sense refers to the gradual movement of plant and animal populations across the landscape over time. So it has to do with that range shifting. So the cool thing about this map is that there's a lot of modeling involved in it. The program they used to make this model models the species and population movements as if they were an electric current flowing through a landscape of variable resistance. That resistance is important. That's kind of why it says, as you see here, high current flow, average current flow, and low current flow. So that resistance is based on land cover. Urban areas would have a high resistance to animal movement, as you can see by looking in the New York City region. In this model, they also weighted the movements so they would be upslope because the higher elevation would be colder, and northward as allowed by that anthropogenic landscape. So that calculation all goes into the flow results that you see. And again, this high current flow is in dark blue and lower is in orange. But the beauty of these results is that you can see these concentrated flow points, and that can help you with prioritization. So for example, one area here can be considered a pinch point. So there's going to be a lot of flow happening here, and you might want to target this area for a prioritization, but also it could be a potential invasion corridor. So this information can be used in multiple ways. There's also a lot of information in here about riparian corridors, as you can see along where the stream would be, but I'm not going to go into that in this particular video. So the last map to dig into here is this map that puts it all together, really. It's the Resilient and Connected Network map. So we'll zoom out again. It takes the above average resiliency scores from the Resilient Sites map, as well as those flow pinch points and diffuse areas where there's a lot of flow, and as well as those riparian corridors that I didn't touch on as much, to get this map that helps zero in on priority areas. So it's no big surprise that the Adirondacks is a high priority area, but there are some other areas too to learn about. This loops in biodiversity as well by incorporating data on rare species presence and high taxa categorization. So I'll scroll down here and you can see that that's involved in the legend, confirmed diversity, that's biodiversity. There's a whole lot of background information also to dig into here, and I'll link in more in the description if you want to learn more. Now, with all that explanation out of the way, let's dig into looking at some summary statistics. I'll switch back to the Resilient map because I like it. And we're just going to draw a polygon. They also give you the option to upload a shapefile for any parcel, town, county, whatever level you want to get those statistics on. You could also download the data at another site to be able to rope in your own analyses as well. But it's just as easy as drawing a polygon too, so that's what we're going to do. So I'll just zoom in a little bit more, and there we go. And then sketch a polygon, and just, any kind of shape. Great, so after a few seconds, these summary statistics pop up. It gives you summary statistics on all the map layers, not just the one that we have active. And remember, it's showing you the score of this area relative to other areas of the same geophysical setting. So right away, you can see this pie chart. It's interactive, so you can see what each thing is representing, but also seeing the same information here. And again, you can click on any of these to find out more about the data that goes into that. And this part gives you some just easy numbers about the resilience, landscape diversity, and local connectedness for that polygon that you drew. So these reports can be useful for communicating with your team or comparing between towns and parcels or counties, just to be able to understand what the resilience is like by this determination for your site. And then remember, you could also get the information by clicking on any point of the map as well. There you go. So I hope you learned something about the Resilient Land Mapping tool from the Nature Conservancy. It's a great tool. There's so many ways to use it. And thank you for joining us for this risk tool summary. We'll have more coming up in the future.